Okay, so let's look at our reflection example. It says the figure shows triangle PQR. Graph the image of the triangle after a reflection across the x-axis, and then it says write the algebraic representation of the reflection, and it also wants to know two things. Are the figures congruent, and does the orientation change? So let's look at this example. Let's first determine, so if we are going to reflect this triangle across the x-axis, that means, so we have the x-axis here, and that means it's going to go from this side of the x-axis to this side of the x-axis. Okay, and so now we know that this is what we're going to, this is the line of reflection that we will reflect this figure across. So we know that the figure will end up in quadrant 3. So let's see, let's start with point P, or vertices P, and we want to see what is the distance from P to the x-axis, and then we will reflect it, that same number of units, across the x-axis to quadrant 3. So from P to the x-axis we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 5 units from P to the x-axis, and then for Q we have 1, 2 units. So from here to here we have 2 units. And then from R we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So from here to here we have 4 units. So we know how many units these points are from the x-axis. Now we can reflect them over to the other side of the x-axis. So for our P, it's 5 units. So we start at the x-axis and we count 5 units. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this is our P prime. Next we have our Q. So Q is 2 units from the x-axis, so we're going to reflect it 2 units on the other side. So we count them 1 and 2. So this would be our Q prime. And then our last point is going to be R, and it is 4 units from the x-axis, so we're going to count 4 units on the other side. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so this is our R prime. So now we need to connect the points and create our reflected triangle across the x-axis. So we connect P prime and P prime and R prime, and then we connect Q prime and P prime, and then our last one is Q prime and R prime. So now we can label, this is our pre-image before the reflection, and then this is our image after the reflection. Okay, and so then it asks us to write the algebraic representation of this reflection. Okay, so we have, let's do it in green. Excuse me. So algebraic representation. Okay, and so before we do this, whenever you reflect across the x-axis, that tells you that the x-coordinates will not change. So only y-coordinates, I'll put it here, will change, and that's what the triangle means, will change. So let's look at our pre-image. So our pre-image is always going to be x comma y, and then we have our transformation symbol, the arrow, and in this problem we're doing a reflection, and so we know that x will not change because we're reflecting across the x-axis. Okay, and then we have x comma, now we will have a change with our y. And we know that when we reflect across the x-axis, then we're going to multiply this y times a -1. So this would be our algebraic representation of this reflection across the x-axis. Okay, so the next question we have is we have, are the figures congruent? Okay, so we want to know, are these two figures congruent? And that means the same size and the same shape. Okay, excellent. So we did not change the size of the figure from the pre-image to the image, and the shape is still the same. It's still a triangle. So did the are these two figures, pre-image and image, congruent? So the answer is yes, they are congruent. And then the next question says, does the orientation change? So orientation simply means the direction on the coordinate plane. Okay, so if we look at it, if we look at the direction, we have originally in our pre-image we had P and R on the top side of the image, but when we reflected it across, now P prime and Q prime, which are the corresponding sides, now they are on the bottom. So the direction of the figure changed between the pre-image and the image. So the orientation, it does change. Okay, so we found, we've actually reflected this figure across the x-axis. We've written the algebraic representation, and then we've answered and said and determined that the congruency is yes, both figures are congruent, and we want to know if the orientation or the direction of the figure on the coordinate plane, did it change? And the answer is also yes. Excellent.